Any nation that draws too great a distinction between its scholars and its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools.
Oh, I haven't heard that in a long time. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna copy that. I put quotes on my photography page sometimes. That might be one I throw out there. That's true, though. I mean, there's such a divide between, and I don't mean like negative divide, just a misunderstanding from the general public and the military, because the general public's not really touched by the military as much back when like there was a draft. So everybody was involved. Right. Everybody wanted to know what's going on, because now we're for sure, it's pretty good odds I could be sending my kid to go do something. Where now it's especially optional now, and like 1% of the country does it. So it's like very few Americans are touched by it.
Yeah, I agree. And, that was kind of my calling card was, I happened to be in this all male military high school. I'm a senior. And, I'll be honest with you, I faked sick that day. I went in the nurse's office. I was like, dude, I'm sick. Blech. So chewed up some M&Ms, drank some milk, made it look like, she's like, go to SIQ, here in bed rest. I'm like, sweet. And that was 9/11. So I'm sitting in my bed, and I'm kind of relaxing and reading up on some notes and watching this little 13-inch color TV. And I turn on the news, Fox News, just in time, and I see the second plane hit the tower. And right then and there, man, I kind of made the decision. I'm enlisting in the Marine Corps. Like, absolutely, right? That was people tell stories in a linear format, punctuated by these events. I think that's kind of the way that we like to go back and remember things. But that absolutely was a punctuated event for me,
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if you're old enough to remember it, how could it not be, right? It's right. Like, that's one of those things. That's like Kennedy getting assassinated. That's like Pearl Harbor. I mean, that was a major world-changing event that we're still feeling the repercussions of today, And it really affected a lot of people, both on our side, on around the world, from the different campaigns that have been waged in the name of, that's what kind of started that ball rolling. So when you were in high school, did you choose to go to this military high school?
Yeah, so I'm a Florida boy, right? I'm from Boynton Beach, Florida, kind of a little beachside community. So I grew up surfing, listening to Sublime, Bob Marley, just totally chill. And but when I was a little kid, I remember, I think it was like 6th or 7th grade, my parents moved to Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie. Like Erie, dude. So if the steel's made in Pittsburgh, there's a lot of refinement in Erie. Anyway, my point is, my mother, she was a CPA, and she had a chance to run about 50% of the family business. So she was going to go take over the finances, which meant relocate. So I get there, and I get in school, and I'm talking to these kids. They all got fast mouths. They just talk sharp shit. And I'm from Florida, man, where we chill. And so, started getting bullied. And I go home to my dad. I'm like, yo, man, what's up? He's like, fight back. I'm like, okay, you got it, pal. What do I do? He's like, I want you to get a sock, right? And I want you to put a bunch of pebbles, and I want you to put some gravel and some dirt in it. And I want you to find the SOB who's been bullying you and wait for him to come through the door. And I want you to beat the shit out of him with this sock.
Damn, your dad told you to do this?
So I was like, okay, firm, Dad, you got it. But, of course, back then, you're a little boy, you're kind of scared. But, I think that's like a pivotal moment, man. So I wait for this 8th grade bully, and he comes walking to the door, and I'm hiding behind, kind of the wall. And as soon as he comes in, whack, dude, I crack him with this thing. And I didn't stop. So I got kicked out of that school. The gist is, I came home, and I've always been fascinated with the military. So in Boynton Beach, back when I was home, I remember my neighbor, Mr. Tidwell. This guy was an Army Master Sergeant. He gave me ammo cans and all this cool Army stuff. And he was coming home in camis every day. And I'm like, wow, dude, that's so cool. So anyway, man, the gist is, kind of had the inkling. So I asked my parents to send me to Fishburne Military School in Waynesboro, Virginia, kind of an all-male military boarding school. And it starts in 8th grade. And you graduate high school there. But it's a prep school. It's a feeder school for VMI, the Citadel, the service academies. Very heavy dope as far as the education side of the house. Virginia does a good job.
But you never had Did you have a want to go to college afterwards and maybe become an officer?
Yeah.
Like, what was 9/11? Like, nope, I'm skipping all that and I want to go straight in and
That's
be
a
an
great
enlisted
question,
guy.
man. So remember I was talking about my mom, finance, master's degree, CPA. My dad had a GED, but I'll tell you, he worked his ass off, man, and provided well for us, and he made good income. That being said, he had this brown leather jacket that he would hang up in the closet. He's like, hey, son, because you don't go to college, I'm telling you, you're going to be wearing this brown leather jacket, you're going to be a damn truck driver. And I'm like, when I'm a little kid, the emphasis was, dude, go to college, So, yeah, man, my plan was to go to the Citadel. And, but 9/11 happened and just kind of diverted. We had these Marine recruiters walking around on campus. There was a sergeant and a lance, not corporal. But one of them was a sniper and the other one was an EOD tech. So of the two types of recruiters to have walking around, these dudes were heavy hitters. And I just remember, being so young and impressionable. I was like, dude, like, how do I do this? Sign me up, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a young man, as a young man, a lot of people see that as a challenge. It's like, this is something that seems cool. I get to go hang out with my homies. You get to shoot guns and stuff. You get to like rappel out of helicopters.
Sure.
Like it looks cool. Like how would you? It makes complete sense that that young men want to go and join the military, and that draw is there. I wanted it since I was a little kid as well. That just natural because my dad was in the military.
And I hear people, man, they tell me stories. Well, I was going to join the military, or it's like, okay, cool, dude, but. The question in every man's heart is, do I have what it takes? I mean, even today, I think we always constantly are reevaluating that. So I wanted to answer my question. So was I nervous? Yeah. Was I hesitant? A little bit, maybe not too much, but you made the Pearl Harbor analogy, dude, and I just felt like it was the call. Like here I am, 18, fit, ready to rock and roll. And yeah, man, when I got my ship date for boot camp, my parents were pretty pissed. I kept that a secret.
Yeah. Where'd you go to boot camp at?
South Carolina.
What year?
2002. So my official start date there was December 3rd, 2002.
And you enlisted as infantry?
0311, brother. The the ASVAB, I scored pretty high. My GT score was I think it was 117. Just as, I qualified for basically every MOS. You're not a 125, I don't remember. But you get the gist. So the recruiters are trying to talk me into all these other ancillary jobs, and I was just like, hey, man, like, what is the most direct route to where I can go overseas and, lay down the scunion? So he kind of tricks me, man. So he's like, all right, 0311, you want to be a rifleman? I'm like, yep, done. He's like, all right, well, have you heard of the security forces stuff? I'm like, so you're still an infantryman, right? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, well, basically you get to be part of a CQB team, and I didn't know what that was back then. He's like, we're going to give you MP5s and shotguns, and you're gonna get some advanced training and learn some extra stuff that your average infantryman doesn't get. And he left it there. I was like,
that sounds awesome.
All right. I'm like, cool, dude. I'm like, hey, these Army guys are giving out bonuses. What's up with that? They're like, we don't do bonuses, dude. I'm like,
the bonus is the title.
I dug on that though, because it's like, hey, do you want to join or not? If not, there's the door. Get the F out of my office. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was even more of an attractive thing for me. It's like, hey, dude, we'd love to have you, but frankly, we don't need you. So
they remind you of that like the entire time you're in the military too. They're like, you're just part of the machine. You're a cog in the machine, dude. The machine will continue running after you leave. So
I found that out.
So he got you at security forces, though, huh?
Yeah, man. And security forces guys get a bum rap. We'll talk about that when you want to, as we progress. But I had a freaking blast, dude.
So for that, you go to boot camp, and then you go to SOI, the School of Infantry, and then following that, you go right into security forces.
Yeah.
Like fast or
yeah. So there's options, right? So Uniform Whiskey is the original program that I signed up for, which means you're going to be part of I think they're called RTT teams. It's been a while, reactionary take-back teams. So you're either going to wind up in, I think it's Bangor, Maine, or Kings Bay, Georgia, where all the nuclear subs do RFDFs, refuel, defuel missions. But there's also, you're protecting, nuclear assets for our nation too. So the draw was that it requires a TS clearance, right? But while I'm in infantry school, and as I graduate infantry school, become a rifleman, and I ship off to security forces school. It's called Naval Support Facility Chesapeake, right outside of Norfolk. So I get there. They call it gun school because you do a lot of shooting. It's pretty cool. But when I get there, I get approached by the dudes who run the school, and they're like, "Hey, man, would you like to switch it up to the Yankee White program?" I'm like, "What the hell is that?" YW, right? And they're like, "Well, that's the presidential support program, for presidential security." I'm like, why not? Like, beats the shit out of Georgia, or like, what am I going to do? Go to DC? They're like, "Yeah, man, you're going to be waiting on a TSSCI Yankee White Cat 2 clearance, and it's going to take about 12 months for your clearance to come through. But while you're there, you'll be providing security for the Chief of Naval Operations and the Commandant of the Marine Corps."
Oh,
so I was like, done,
Can you explain, because you just went through that security clearance title really quickly. Can you explain to people that may not know what that means,
Great call, dude. So, they've changed now, right? It used to be like confidential or FOUO. Then the next level is secret. And the definition of that is, any information that can provide harm to the security posture of the United States. Top secret is any information that can provide grave harm, to the security posture of the United States or its assets. And the SCI is sensitive compartmentalized information. So, like, picture a pie, right? So they slice it up, and you have your slice of the pie. So right here is like your compartment, right? So this is there's special access programs and things that you can get read into, and you'll work it within the confines of the slice of your pie, but you never really know how it fits into the rest of the pie. And just because you have clearance doesn't mean you have access. What I mean? So it's cool to get a clearance, but yeah, man, like, you're not going to get read into anything until there's a need. So,
and then yeah, for sure. And then the Yankee White, and then you said Yankee White Cat 2, meaning that you can carry a firearm.
So my understanding of it was there's 3 categories. Cat 3 dudes, those are like your dudes who open the doors at the White House. They stand there and, yes, sir. Your guys that, are wearing dress blues that you see on TV all the time. And, your ceremonial marchers, your band folks. So guys that are, guys and ladies, they're going to have close proximity to the president, to POTUS, which at the time, of course, was George W. Bush. Cat 2 means you can hold a loaded weapon you're authorized to hold a loaded weapon next to the President of the United States. And Cat 1 is a little bit more elusive. I know that, peak folk, I'll just put it like that, hold Cat 1 clearances, which, is kind of, we'll leave it there. Yeah, we'll leave it there.
So what'd you think about that? Like, getting asked to do that. I remember a kid in my boot camp platoon got qualified for it, and he ended up having to do a bunch of extra stuff in boot camp because they'll start picking people from there if they can. And I remember he had like a stamp on his SRB that said like Yankee White or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that, or presidential security or something like that. I was like, holy shit, that's kind of crazy, dude.
Yeah, man. So what happened was this, dude. I graduated infantry school, and it was a tear in my heart, dude. For whatever reason, I just remember my company was like, Bravo Company or something. Mm-hmm. But half of my class immediately went to pick up their shit, get their initial issue, and they were getting on a plane, and they were flying their ass to Iraq to be combat replacements, like right now. Like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Your ass is going to Iraq. So I'm looking over at these folks, and they're stoked. And the reason why that's rad is because you got to understand the time frame, man. And I'll get to the Yankee White thing, but the dudes that joined in like at that particular time, I would say right after post 9/11, right? Like, no shit, after 9/11. These weren't dumb folks. These were guys that were truly motivated to be a patriot. I had guys that were just trying to be grunts, 0311s. They had master's degrees. I had a guy who was a criminal defense attorney. I had a dude from the 82nd Airborne from the Army who was, I think he was a sergeant, a buck sergeant E5. So, looking at his little ribbon stack, going, wow, he's got jump wings already, and now he wants to be a Marine rifleman, Mm-hmm. The gist is everybody was motivated. Nobody was there for benefits. Nobody cared about the GI Bill. Nobody cared about, all the perks. Like, they just wanted to go fight. So you're playing for keeps. all the bullshit was cut in boot camp. All the bullshit was cut in SOI. Like, we are going to train you to be combat effective and to be an absolute ferocious dude. I dug on that, man. That was really cool. At least that's what I picked up on. Anyway, so after all that crap, I go to security forces school. Same kind of thing, man. You know, we did a lot of shooting, a lot of cool stuff, but we knew that we were, you know, the security posture of the nation was heightened, and therefore, you know, the emphasis on getting good training was a little bit higher than I would say probably. I don't know how to say this correctly, but maybe now, maybe not now because of the Iran thing, but you get the gist. So when I get to DC, they're like, all right, dude, we're going to put you on a plane. You still have to screen for this. I'm like, all right, so like, I might not make it. They're like, yeah, there's like a pretty freaking good probability you're not going to make it, dude. But we're going to give the old college try. So I show up, and I'm in my Chucks and or my Alphas, I think, and which is like the green coat, you know, tan shirt. I mean, you're still looking pretty cool, but you got nothing, you know. And there's 36 dudes lined up to go into this room, and the room is a conference room. And by the time my turn came, I go into the room, and there's one chair in the middle of the room, which is awkward. So, you know, you got to bang on the door, request permission to enter, march to the center of the chair, do a sidestep, you know, ask permission to be seated. They tell you to be seated. You know, left hand, left knee, right hand, right knee, head and eyes straight to the front kind of thing. But you are 180 degrees semicircled, surrounded by, you know, E9s, and the head of the table was I think he was like an 05 lieutenant or a commander Navy psychiatrist or psychologist. So now the interview starts. You already have to fill out like I think it was 3 or 5 parts of personality. You know, they want to make sure your personality is intact, that you know, you're not wacky. So you fill out a personality profile. And they want to make sure your answers are consistent, but now's the oral interview board. So, yeah, you sit before these cats, and, you know, they basically read your body language. They're listening to your tonality, your delivery, how you construct your sentences. They're trying to gauge your intelligence and, you know, just see if you're a good dude. I'm not going to go into it, but the basis was, you know, are you loyal and allegiant and faithful to our nation? And the other basis was, are you a scumbag? Like, do you do scummy shit? Like, do you gamble? Do you drink? Like, hey, kid, we know that you're 19, about to turn 20, but, like, you know, you ever booze it up? And, I mean, yeah, man, my dad taught me how to drink when I was, like, 16. He's like, I'm going to teach you how to drink like a gentleman with gin and tonics. But I left that part out. I was like, man, I've been drunk one time, and I threw up 37 times, and I'll never do that shit again. You know? And that seemed to land pretty well. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I still have no idea. So, you know, we're kind of waiting, and they picked 3 of us.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
I assume you didn't tell them about the rocks in the sock incident from your childhood.
I actually did. I told them, hey, but I didn't talk about the rocks in the socks, but, you know, they go back 10 years, right? So they want to look at all your schools and talk to your teachers and stuff. And even, I mean, 10 years from 18 is kind of
off topic, but because you've gone through that process, isn't it interesting? Did you hear about that CIA agent a few weeks ago or like a month ago that got busted with like $10 million of gold in his house? And then they found out that this guy lied. Yeah. Because he started a special access program that was basically paying himself gold. And he lied about being a Navy pilot and stuff like that. Like, he somehow got into the CIA as an agent and lied about his military service.
That's bananas.
Because you know the process of going through and getting those different levels of clearances. Like, how does that even happen, you know?
Brother, I can't even fathom it, man.
That's so crazy. Like, when I heard that, I was like, so it's just, I don't know, that popped in my head when we were sitting here going through, like, how in depth, because you said, you know, they go back 10 years, and that's, like, legit. Like, they'll go talk to your neighbors, they'll go talk to your old teachers and stuff like that. Like,
back then it was called a single scope background investigation. So I think there's a different name for it today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty in depth, though. And it has to be, right? They're giving you permission to stand next to the president with a gun, so.
Pretty much, yeah. There's 2 places from here you can wind up. So your initial duty, okay, you know, you're like, hey, you're cleared hot, right? Like, all right, dude, you made it, cool, but you didn't quite make it. So let's put you, now the name of it, like, remember Scout Sniper Basic course? That's nothing basic about that. That old school course was a 12-week course, like, you know, and I know there's some follow-on training, but the gist is guard school is what they called it. And it sounds stupid, but it was actually pretty legit. Everything from, you know, back then anyway, advanced camera systems to alarm control center stuff, visitor badging and access, escort policies, procedures. And then we did a lot of, you know, just from the holster, you know, presentations with the duty gear that we were issued. So we were getting reps, which was cool. We went to Quantico. I don't know why. I did some fast roping out of some CH-53 helicopters. That had absolutely nothing to do with what we did. But
you never know, man.
Maybe they threw it in there as like a little, you know, like a little. But no, it wasn't sexy. It was straight up guard duty, dude. So you're standing in front of the commandant's house. The commandant comes out, and then of course at Marine Barracks 8th and I in Southeast in DC. Every night they have the Friday evening parade, so the little silent drill platoon, the ceremonial marcher dudes, and these guys, the SD, you know, the silent drill platoon guys, maybe a little bit, you know, they're like your blockhead Marine, man. Like they love this shit. They're all about marching and twirling rifles, and they live for it. The ceremonial marchers, all they want to do is go overseas and kill people, and here they are stuck like Chuck, you know, ironing their uniforms.
Yeah, like, why am I here?
Dude, you had to get 2 haircuts a week there, man. Wednesday and Friday. I have no idea.
People think it's
why.
crazy when I tell them that I had to get my haircut every week in the Marines. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude. And if you don't, like, people make it a big deal. It's like a thing, you know? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm telling you.
Get your haircut. Get your haircut.
Yeah, why did you get your fucking haircut? I'm like, God.
Yeah, get your fucking haircut.
Hey, I wanted to ask, you know, you did the guard program there. You did the other security forces stuff before that. Later on, you were working with MARSOC and stuff, or you were working in different special operations capacities. When you did that training, how much shooting difference was there? I know I know there's going to be different types of shooting, but like volume and like how much hands-on you got. I feel like working around the president or in that kind of vibe or nuclear, you know, you would almost get the same amount of training as you would in like special operations. Or am I completely off base?
Off base, but not really. I'll give you a quick story to kind of emphasize the difference. It's December. It's like -20 with the wind chill. I'm standing out front of the commandant's house, and at the time I think it was General Hagee, and I'm in camis, and I've got my snivel gear under my camis because you can't, of course, wear an overcoat, and because we never practiced, basically it covers up your pistol, and we never practiced drawing from the holster with gloves on. So I'm sitting there at -20 with no gloves on, and my hands are stiff, dude. So the commandant comes walking out, right, and I'm standing at ceremonial parade rest, just kind of chilling. And of course, I snap to attention, salute him, you know, give him the proper greeting of the day and shit. He goes, "Hey, Marine, what's up?" I'm like, "Nothing, sir." You know, just kind of standing my post, watching the streets, you know, some clever shit. And he's like, "Well, you know, you look cold, man. Like, you know, why don't you put gloves on?" I'm like, "Sir, I can't put gloves on." He's like, "Why not?" Like, we haven't practiced drawing from our holsters with gloves on, you know. He's like, "So warm up your hands, man." He's like, "You know, how are you going to be effective with cold hands?" I'm like,
Which
like, put them in your
was
pockets. This? He's like, yeah, like, I think it was General Hagee at the time. You have to Google it, 2002. Okay. So yeah, man, he's like, "Well, put your hands in your pockets." I'm like, shit. What? I'm like, no way. The commandant just told me to. I'm like, fucking no, say no more, man. Say less. So hands go in the pockets. Aye, sir. You got it. Hands go in the pockets. Commandant was rapping with me. I feel cool. And now I have an order to where I'm like the only dude in the Marine Corps who can put his freaking hands in his pockets. So I'm running with it, man. And anyway, immediately the camera sees me. You know, they're like, you know, Papa 1, this is Papa 2. Why do you have your hands in your pockets? I'm like, hey, the commandant just said I could, man. Leave me alone.
Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps comes out like, "What the hell are you doing?" Be like, "Hey, I don't know."
No, but that's a true story. So my point is, back to your training. Like, that's the difference, right? Like, common sense, man. You know, like, come on,
it's all
dude.
Ceremonial. Well, yeah, I guess I meant necessarily more like in the initial training and stuff, like your shooting packages and stuff like that, like coming up. I know once you're on guard duty, you're fucking.
So they have a Rogers range at Security Forces School, which is pretty cool. You have little steel plates that pop out. They have sliding steel targets that you have to engage from different positions. You have to earn your draw. So you practice doing a little bit of fighting. You fall to the deck, shooting between your legs, rolling. You know, shooting proned out, shooting from supine. And then back then they did have that little board where you are basically shooting through, different holes and different sized apertures. So it was pretty neat. I thought at the time it was pretty advanced. We did a lot of nighttime training too, night shoots. They had little police lights going on behind you. The code lights were wrapping, so red and blue. But the point is that threw your depth perception off. They turned out all the other lights, and now you're trying to get that sight picture with these little 3 white dots, and it's red and blue, and so everything's flashing. So that part was neat. But as far as round count and volume, as I progressed through my career, there was definitely a lot more shooting when you get to the special operations side of the house. As a matter of fact, it was encouraged that you just go draw ammo and practice on your own too.
Shoot as much as you want, cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
Yeah, I mean, all this sounds awesome, man. I mean, that's, besides standing guard duty.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Outside, that kind of sucks, but, what are you going to do, right? You gotta earn your keep up there.
Yes, sir. So I got kicked out.
Let me know about that. Let's hear about
that. Let's talk about it, man, because that's how we progress. So, I don't know, man, turned 20, and all my friends, for whatever reason, I felt the need to like bullshit them about my age because I didn't want to let them know I was a young cat, because I think a lot of the dudes there were a little bit older. And when you're 19, a 22 or 23-year-old, they seem, like wiser for some reason. This guy's so dialed, No, he's not. But so back then we had the green IDs, man. And I remember my buddy showed me how to peel the back cover off with an X-Acto knife and an iron to heat it up. And I was born in '83. So I just cut out this with an X-Acto knife. I cut out the center part of the 3, and I took a map pen, a fine point map pen like we use in LandNav, and I made it a complete 0. And it looked amazing. So I put the back cover back on, man, and now I have an ID that says I am however much old, 3 years old. A
military ID.
A military government-issued ID I forged. So I start going to South. I went to freaking Georgetown, that's where you go, M Street. And I go to this place called Rhino Bar. And it was pretty cool, man. I didn't know any girls. I didn't know, I had a couple friends, and they would go out with me and kind of watch me, or drink with me, watch over me, kind of protect me, Like, I guess that's what boys do, man. They get each other's backs. So the Marines were hated. So, we try to look like, but with the stupid haircuts twice a week, it's hard to blend in. But we always had each other's backs is what I mean by that. And that was pretty cool. But they don't know I have a fake ID, right? So I go to the bar and I find this blonde chick who's really cool. I ended up dating her for a little while. And I think that my sergeant at the time also knew her. Right. But she didn't dig him, and he dug her, and it was a weird thing. So I was like, well, I think I'm going to, let's continue chatting. Mm-hmm. That pissed him off. So they sent us on a 6-mile run. He rat fucked my room, found my fake ID, brought me down to the company gunny, and I just owned it, don't lie, cheat, or steal kind of thing. So I was like, hey, look, I did. I turned my government ID into a fake. I'm sorry about that. So I got charged. I got a company level NJP, and I got charged with destruction of government property, false official statement. So I took the hit. So they're like, hey man, we're going to let you go from the the Yankee White program. You're going to go to the grunts, and they were using it as a threat. But I'm kind of stoked.
Finally.
Hell yeah, finally I get out of here. The downside is I really wanted my picture in the Oval Office with the president, which is one thing you get, and I wanted my 24 karat gold presidential support badge. It's serialized to you, so I didn't get that either. But Marine Online was the program that just came out I think it was kind of new, and you could log in and check all of your career stuff, your thrift savings plan, your MOS. You could look up all this information the Marine Corps has on you, and there was a sub tab called Web Orders. So I click on Web Orders, man, and somehow I was able to get in there and have the permissions to access like where my orders were going to land me, and I saw this unit called the Anti-Terrorism Battalion. And I'm like, that sounds cool. So I click it, and no shit, man, I got orders to the Anti-Terrorism Battalion. And when the orders came down the pipe, that same sergeant, they wanted me to go to like 3-6 or just some standard Victor unit in the grunts. And anyway, man, they're looking at 4th MEB, Anti-Terrorism Battalion. They're like, what the fuck, Mills? And I'm like, hey, man, lucky me, I guess, So it was like a lateral move with maybe an upward kick.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it a lot different going from that because you were already going through security, like the security forces program anyway. So was it weird going back to that kind of world?
What, to Camp Lejeune?
Or was it different, like the Anti-Terrorism Battalion? What was that? That wasn't Fast Company then?
No, not at all. So it was an experimental unit. There was a guy named Lieutenant Colonel Killian who stood it up. He was the battalion. He was the battalion commander. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Killian had a vision for this, and now I don't want to say it quite. It came really close. Mm-hmm. He was going to blend the way that Ranger Battalion operates with Marine Corps infantry with some fast company emphasis, but he wanted everybody in that battalion, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta Company, to be basically experts at back then we called it AUC, Advanced Urban Combat. So we got to go to some cool schools, man. We did. We had a really mean workup. Did a lot of heavy weapons, a lot of machine gun stuff. Basically, I got to go to designated marksman school, but back when it was called SOTG, Special Operations Training Group. Mm-hmm. So did some high angle shooting, using M14 designated marksman rifles. That was pretty cool. But kicker
is that the battalion that they turned into 3rd MSOB when they
close. Oh, that's such a good question, man. So yeah, so I spend my time in Anti-Terrorism Battalion, right? And we pump out to Iraq, northeast of Baghdad and Bakuba. I'll tell you about that mission in a minute. But when I came back, there was a new unit that stood up called FMTU, the Foreign Military Training Unit. Okay. And the FMTU dudes, a lot of guys from AT Battalion were popping smoke over to FMTU, right? So it was kind of one hand was feeding the other. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I remember at that point, though, bro, I was dead set on getting out. Like, dude, I'm going home. I'm going to go to college, I applied for a school cut to get out 3 months early. So the gist is Colonel Killian calls me and he's like, hey, George, man, like, you had a successful deployment to Iraq. I went to Israeli counterterrorism school. That was pretty cool. You got some good schools under your belt for being a junior dude. You're a corporal looking at picking up sergeant. And he goes, would you like to go to FMTU, go to language school, go to foreign weapons instructor course? And that was basically... Call it like they were working on a FID-ish, like foreign internal defense style mission. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go train indigenous forces to help plus themselves up from the ground up approach. So, this host nation can protect itself, or at least this little segment of the populace. So the FMTU dudes ended up becoming 3rd MSOB.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, so the culture permeated, right? So 1st and 2nd MSOB back then was, 1st Force Recon and 2nd Force Recon. But the FMTU cats, they became 3rd.
I heard, and I was at Lejeune when all that was going on, and 3rd MSOB, the new 3rd MSOB, was the only one that wasn't out in whatever, Stone Bay or whatever. It was over by, like, the supply warehouses. And I remember someone saying that it was over there because when they first started, this is before they made the Death Star, like, huge headquarters and stuff. They said that they were over there because they were the only one that wasn't a recon, didn't start as a recon unit. So they had them like separated from everybody else. I was like, really? I was like, that's fucked up. I was like, I guess they got shit on a little bit when it first stood up because they were the only ones that weren't recon guys.
They did, yeah. My buddy Mike Roy, he was a scout sniper that was in Anti-Terrorism Battalion with me. He ended up going over to FMTU and then went to 3rd MSOB. He was a good guy. He's no longer with us, but he was one of my best friends, man. I deployed with him to Iraq with Anti-Terrorism Battalion. He was a good cat. But yeah, man.
You talked about going to what was it, an Israeli school? So I've heard that when I first came in the Marines, going and training with the Israelis seemed like a more common thing than it is now. What was that like? Like working with them? How professional were they and that kind of thing?
We got our nuts kicked in.
Really?
Oh, man. Humility looks good on everybody, and we were not humble, man. We went there cocky and arrogant, but, like, I don't want to say, like, they didn't care. They were just kind of laughing, and under their breath, they're like, okay, man, well, wait till you get through this course. We might have some stuff to show you. They were super humble, super kind, super respectable, and receptive to us. So... But I'll tell you what, man, their viciousness, their violence of action, the speed and the intensity at which they train. And these dudes send rounds, brother. They shoot all day, all the time, and do not care. So the full name of the school, in Hebrew, it's called LOTAR, L-O-T-A-R. I have no idea how to say it in Hebrew. But in English, it's CTMSS, Israeli Counterterrorism Marksmanship and Sniper School. So it's separated into two parts. You had the legit, no shit sniper school, and our scout snipers ended up going to that. There was an emphasis on, precision marksmanship and shooting good, but the vast majority of what we did was CQB oriented, right? So this was a full on in the shoot house with some Krav Maga, getting your ass kicked. So I'm 6'2". Back then I think I was like 205 pounds, and I got my ass handed to me by this like 5'8" Israeli dude. And but we did a lot of shooting, man, and we learned some new styles of shooting. Like for example, they carry their pistols condition 3, no round in chamber. Right, really strange. Like, why would you carry a pistol if you don't have a round in the chamber?
In combat?
Yeah, man. From the holster. They have a way to they do put the round into the chamber and make a condition 1 weapon as they're doing the draw stroke. It's like little stuff like that. The other things that were different were basically clearing a majority of the room from the doorway, right? Instead of just making entry and button hook, limited cross, or it was, or a button hook cross or limited penetration, right? They had some neat tactics, and the reason for that is just the different types of threats that they faced.
Yeah.
So when they go into a doorway, man, they don't know if the rug behind the door is a grate with a dude under it, with a weapon pointing upwards. I mean, they have some really, they've learned a lot of hard lessons, and they wanted to pass that down. So anyway, the other thing that I took away from that was everybody gets 5 rounds. So, right. So as you're making your way through the house, you got to remember who you shot, and then you were to stand over them and put a security shot in their head to make sure they're dead, like absolutely confirm. Right. Mm-hmm. So when we left the course, we were our battalion or our company commander, Chris Graham at the time, Grambo, we called him. He's super cool. He was like, all right, Joe, it's like, you cannot do that. Like, that's against the Geneva Conventions. You will go to jail. If you smoke an enemy combatant and then you just want to confirm that he smoked and stand over his head and put a round into it, like that's a hard no-go.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. I mean, I thought it'd be, they got all their stuff going on with Hamas all the time and everything like that, and there's obviously a divide on what people think about them and stuff. But I mean, you can't argue against that. Their military is highly effective in a lot of the stuff that they do. Same thing with their intelligence services. The whole thing with the pagers last year, crazy. It's like stuff like that. It's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But again, I don't. Once the global war on terror really kicked off, I don't think we really did a lot of training with those guys anymore. Because I always heard guys, when I came in, guys before the war and stuff would go on a MEU, or with the early days of the war, they'd go on a MEU or something, and they'd go over and they'd spend some time in Israel, they'd spend some time in like Greece, they'd spend some time, Rhoda or whatever. But
so it was named Operation Noble Shirley, and we were told that we were the very first unit. Now, I think my company commander, Chris Graham, who you can Google and look him up, he's a very interesting cat. Had a great career at DIA. He's not with us anymore, but he's a beautiful man, awesome dude, handsome, nice hair. You'll love him. Anyway, he massaged that. And we were told that we were the first American unit to train with the Israelis there in about 5 years. So
sick.
I mean, how special do you feel now, So they rolled out the red carpet for us, man.
Well, that's cool.
From the airport, yeah.
And I know, obviously people are going to, just because it's Israel, people are going to hate on it and stuff, but to have that kind of training opportunity, I think anytime that you can work with a capable foreign force, it's always interesting, like you were talking about, to see how their tactics solve whatever problem. You know what I'm saying? It may not be a problem that you are going to encounter a lot, but like seeing someone, introduce a problem that you've never really seen and seeing how they counter it, it's like, oh shit. It's like almost turns on a light bulb, like, oh, I never even thought of that. Like, I didn't even think that was a thing.
Yeah, one example that as you talk, more things pop into my brain. I didn't even. Yeah. It was So like, we went to non-lethal weapons and tactics school, another SOTG course. And, we were doing riot control stuff. When they have riots that become super raucous, like really getting out of control, they use a Ruger 1022 with a scope, accurized, and they look for the main agitators in the crowd and they shoot them in the leg.
Oh, really?
And the reason is the folks around them will obviously, so now, you didn't kill the guy, but now, it's going to take 3 or 4 other folks around him to pick this guy up and shimmy him out of the crowd. So not only did you reduce one, major agitator, you got the 4 guys around him to get him out of there. Because, but whatever they got to do to control those things, because that can get pretty dicey really quick.
Yeah.
But another thing we were told never to do,
Yeah. I mean, that's what people are always saying. Well, just shoot him in the leg, and it's like, well, that's not really the greatest idea. Like,
no, this is a horrible idea.
One, it's extremely hard. 2, that can actually kill them pretty quickly if you hit the wrong spot. So.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, so you were talking about your deployment to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
What was that kind of deployment? Because it wasn't a traditional infantry battalion.
No, we were structured. So we had one company. Actually, we had 2 companies in our battalion. Correction, we had 2 platoons. So it was Bravo Company, Anti-Terrorism Battalion, right? And we made this deployment. I want to say 05. And we stretched into 06. So my understanding was that the State Department came down with a tasker for us because we were fishing for a deployment to Iraq. Everybody wanted to go, but we were pumping out small teams of dudes to go do, go do advisory role stuff, to go be advisors on the border. So anyway, this one was, we were going to go to a base called. It was called Fob Spartan, but there was another name for it. But it's northeast of Bakuba. And basically it housed what's called the People's Mujahideen of Iran, the Mujahideen of Iran, PMOI. The PMOI is a group of exiled Iranians, and there are about 3,500 of them. And they have this city. It's called Ashraf City, right? Now I remember. So the city was totally strange. I mean, it's like you take Iraq and then you have it cut out a small square, and then there's the PMOI. Mm-hmm. But during the invasion, as everybody was pushing north and U.S. forces encountered the PMOI, they were on the U.S. terrorist list, and we're fighting the global war on terrorism. But they weren't hostile toward us; they were hostile toward Iran. So they were anti-Iranian Iranians. And they were all very smart. They all spoke like 4 languages. Russian was a big one there too. They were all educated, but they built their own little city because Saddam built it for them. So basically, they were cast out of Iran. Saddam said, "Hey, we'll take you," and he built them a neat little city where they could just keep to themselves. But he used them, and they had artillery, they had weapons, they had snipers, they had obviously infantry folks, they had vehicles, they had technicals with vehicles with mounted machine guns. And apparently they did some dirty work for Saddam, which pissed off the surrounding area. So we essentially, the Army's military police had to set up a compound and basically protect these guys because they didn't do anything. They surrendered to us. Mm-hmm. Right. So now you have 3,500 dudes in their own city that surrendered to U.S. coalition forces as we invaded, and everyone's kind of scratching their head as like, what the hell do we do with these guys? You can't send them anywhere. They're on a terrorist list. But the gist is now the Anti-Terrorism Battalion is guarding a group of terrorists during the global war on terrorism. I always thought that was ironic. I kind of made that up, but it's absolutely true. So we had 2 platoons that would stand security, do a 360 perimeter of our little fob. And then I was part of the mobile assault platoon, which I got lucky. So we had 6 gun trucks, up armored, 250 cals, 2 Mark 19s, 2 240s. And then we had 2 CAT teams, CAT 1 and CAT 2. So there was 3 of the same. So we basically had the same mission as the CAT teams. They had no tows. They didn't have, it was just straight up machine guns. Mm-hmm. And our job was to conduct vehicle mounted patrols of the local area and also act as the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force. So, yeah, we had a little city north of us called Udaim, and that was my very first gunfight ever. It took me like 2 months. But Udaim popped off, and it was a major anti-American forces / Al-Qaeda, back then it was AQI, Al-Qaeda of Iraq, stronghold to include the women. And, the whole city was basically in support. So the Iraqi army had a tent with like 40 dudes in there, and them being, the Iraqi army being the Iraqi army, they decided in the middle of the day to go to sleep and rack out. So like one dude stood post by the radio. So of course AQI caught it. They pulled up with a couple technicals and smoked everybody in that tent. Fuck. So we got launched as the QRF, and I'm like, for real? I'm like, cool, So we basically set up an L shape. The city was shaped like a square. You had north-south running roads, east-west running roads, and then off to the northwest was kind of like an irrigated field with a canal. So our job was to kind of push these insurgents through the city out into the open so the Apaches could come and clean them up. So, the Army had tank support there. There was definitely rotary wing aviation support that was doing some gun runs, hooking and... So my Humvee was stationed down a narrow street, and basically, once we got positive ID of bad guys who were trying to cross that street, we just smoked them. So it was unique. It was my first taste of combat, but we didn't lose anybody. None of us got killed. A couple guys got shot in the plate, or one guy got shot in his IFAC or something simple, but we had 0 casualties. So we fought all that day, all night, and then the next morning we got ripped out of there by another team of assets that came to plus us up, and we went home and rekitted, refueled, rearmed, and stood by for another tasking. But yeah, man, we were riding the high from our first little sniff of combat, and it's great when you're giving it, man, but as you'll know later, it's not so great when you're getting it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely easy to think this is awesome, if nothing bad's happening on your end,
I think we killed like 250 Al-Qaeda.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that was, what year was that again?
2005. Actually, this one I think was December. This was like December 9th, I think.
That 05, 06, 07, bled into 07. Basically from like 04 to like 07 was like real rough in Iraq.
Yeah, it got dicey.
Yeah, that would have been a crazy time to have been there.
It was.
Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, man. It was a strange mission. So anybody who wants to research this, I think it's very interesting. We found a ton of UXO, like a ton. We found a ton of gas masks. We found some evidence that there may have been VX there at one point. Nerve agents. So. That was pretty interesting.
Are you the WMD missing link? Are you the one that knows?
That's what I'm saying,
WMDs
man. Yeah. Everyone thinks nukes when they think WMD, but they don't realize that biological and chemical weapons count just as much.
Yeah, for sure. That would have been crazy to stumble upon a bunch of fucking biological weapons or something. I'd be like, oh shit, let's get out of here. I haven't talked to anybody that was part of that battalion that had deployed before, so it's really interesting to see how you guys were utilized, since you're not like a traditional battalion, so you probably don't have normally I don't think they would give you your own battle space.
We did have an area, so the other thing that we did was we did routine convoy security, because the PMOI were trying to lobby for themselves. So they would make routine trips to Baghdad and to just north of Baghdad, Anaconda, LSA. I think it was like Logistical Support Annex. I'm not sure what LSA means. But LSA Anaconda was the major firm base that people would fly in and out of. It was a huge, huge base. So we'd take these National Guard folks, and even as a corporal, and that's another thing people don't understand about the Marine Corps, is leadership being pushed down to the lowest level. So as a young corporal, I found I'm like the assistant convoy commander, and we're transporting 36 Army vehicles, through down black routes, which we should have had aviation support. But I remember this female Army soldier shows up, and she's got a troll, with like purple hair hanging on her.
I remember when those were popular back in the day. Yeah.
Oh my God, man! I walked up to her, I ripped that thing off and stomped it in the dirt. I was like, "What the hell's wrong with you? You need to get your head on straight," And anyway, we go to Anaconda. This is a cool story, dude. We go to Anaconda, and one of the majors, a female major, she bought like 20 pizzas. We didn't know that, so she put them in her vehicle. We're coming back, and these routes are laden with IEDs. This is notorious ambush type stuff. And she keeps calling short halts. So short and long halt. Short halt is 2 minutes or less. A long halt is anything more. She's like, short halt. I'm like, what the hell's going on back there? She's handing out pizzas, dude.
Oh, no way.
To the local. Yeah, man. Like, in some of the, what are you doing? Like, I get that your heart bleeds, but come on. We can't be doing that stuff.
Handing out pizza to the people that don't understand that in some areas, if you try to do something like that, you will be overwhelmed by people, like, swarming you. Because people are hungry or want water or whatever. Like, anytime you go out and do a humanitarian mission like that, where you're handing out food, water, or doing medical, checks on people, that's a mission. There's like security layers and stuff that have to be set up because you can easily become overwhelmed by these desperate people. When you just start, that's. I mean, like you said, I get what your intent is good and you're trying to be a good person, but that's a
not
crazy
the time
thing to be doing.
You don't feed the seagulls at the beach, brother.
No, they're hungry too. That's exactly what'll happen. You start getting swarmed.
Lest you get
seagulls.
swarmed.
Yeah. That's funny though. I mean, that's what I mean, some people.
It was crazy, man.
Military
it was bananas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you came back from that deployment, what were you feeling? How were you feeling about it? About the Marine Corps? About
I caught contractor fever, man. That was my first taste of seeing Aegis, Aranis, Armor Group Incorporated, Blackwater, Triple Canopy. I saw these dudes running around, and they were cool, dude, like at least in my mind. And they're making $15,000 a month, basically doing the same stuff we're doing. And I'm like, I wasn't in it to be a careerist. I have no idea how I did so long in the Marine Corps. I got out 4 times, dude. So I kept coming back every time there was cool stuff to do. And I'll tell you about the MARSOC thing later, how that happened. But the gist is I wanted to go home and finish the promise to my parents to go to college. So I went to FAU. But yeah, that's how I was feeling. So I went to FAU for like 3 months, and I hated it. Like, I could not stand. I'm like, this is a giant waste of time. Everyone here's an idiot. These professors are all liberals. Even the folks on campus and the girls I was trying to talk to, because I was a young single man. I couldn't stand more than 5 minutes of conversation with you. And I'm like, dude, get me out of here. So I applied to Special Operations Consulting Security Management Group, or SOC SMG back in the day. Now it's just SOC Incorporated. And I got picked up quick, man. I got picked up on a DOD contract, and I was out of there, and I think I was home when I got out of the Marine Corps for like 3 months. So the turnaround time was, So I told Lieutenant, Killian, no thanks on the FMTU gig, brother. I dig it. Thank you so much for thinking of me and considering me. It's a real honor. I just want to go home and go to college, go to Florida, listen to Sublime, surf, and get my Bob Marley on. And then I found out really quick that I'm kind of not that guy anymore. Now I'm like, I wanted more. I wanted more. Justin,
you've seen the world.
Yeah.
You're trying to relate with people that have never. This is probably, if they're in college, this might be the first time they left their hometown, and you've already gone around the world. Like, how old were you at this point? How old were you?
So you joined when you were 18. I was 22, maybe 23.
Yeah, exactly. You've already had a top secret security clearance at the highest level. You've already been to combat. You've already done all these things, and you're trying to have a conversation with college students that have done nothing other than live at home and then go to class and maybe party some.
Yeah, and you don't want to be a resentful guy, but I resented these folks because here you are sitting on your ass, while we're all shit. I'm looking around at these quote unquote men. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, physically, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you not serving your nation right now? Like, don't you understand the call? Back to the Pearl Harbor thing. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's their right too. But
well, I'll say that I will. A lot of people have what you're talking about, that resentment. They come back and they're just they get that you weren't there, you don't understand, you couldn't, And then my kind of counter to that is would you want them to? Especially when you're talking about family, your family, my family just doesn't understand me, or they don't understand what I've been through. But would you want them to understand that? Would you really want them to experience whatever tragic or traumatic thing that you did or went through, so that they can understand that? Be glad that they don't understand it. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that they don't understand that kind of trauma. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's where the professional warrior comes in, right?
Exactly. You don't get that when you're young.
No. So you start, as you mature, you start to realize that, hey, the reason I'm doing this is so you can live your life and not have to worry about any of this crap. So I'm going to keep the wolf away from your doorstep and going overseas, and I'm going to be a quiet professional about it and do my job. And when I come home, just be quiet but at the time, I guess I was so amped up and so young and probably, to be fair, immature.
Oh, yeah.
But I was just riding the high because it would have been a different story if we took casualties, man. Like the folks that were in Fallujah, the folks that, were doing other missions, we were tracking on them. Those were a lot of our bros. I mean, the Marine Corps is tight. It's small. Mm-hmm. And they had a totally different outlook than me. But, all is how to look at things through the lens of your experience. So, but for me, the contractor fever thing was cool because I just, I wanted to go check it out. So, I get hired.
No, that makes sense. Before I want to talk more about that, but like real quick, I want to just add on, I'm with you. And I was kind of like, why wouldn't, people, if you should join the military at the time, it was definitely like, why aren't you joining? Kind of like you're saying, well, what did you do during the war, Dad? That kind of thing.
Right.
But now, looking back, I've told like my brother-in-law this, I've told other people this that are like construction workers and stuff like that. As long as you did something positive for the community over the last 20 years, then you did your part, man. Like if you I know these guys that are construction workers and stuff. I talk about my brother-in-law specifically multiple times. He's helped build multiple buildings at Purdue University. I'm like, how much more productive and good for society is that compared to what I did in Afghanistan? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so it's like, don't hate on yourself as long as you came and you did the contract is we're going to go do this bullshit over in other countries so you don't have to, but we want you to do your part for your community. Be a good, positive, aspect of your communthe. Be nice to people, clean up your streets, take care of your community. And that's all we ask.
And I wish the one thing that they wanted, the product, right, the end state was to just develop a guy who's going to go out there and execute, right?
Yeah.
Like that's it. There was not until I started, going to ANGLICO and eventually in MARSOC did I start thinking that way. Because that type of thinking was never either encouraged. I mean, but as you mature in your career, you start to develop a philosophy, and now that stuff becomes evident. Like, all right, man.
Especially, and it's even more pronounced in these smaller, more specialized units because it's required for you to think. There's not always someone there to tell you what to do, and this is how things happen. When you're on a small team, ANGLICO has 19 guys on a team. When you go out, there's 19 of you. You guys, between the group of you, if you're all together, which a lot of times you're not, between that group, you guys got to figure it out. You don't have a whole battalion's worth of people and staff and everything else to figure things out. It's you guys to figure it out. So I think that thinking is required and encouraged in those kind of units. But I want to talk about for the contracting, when you got into that, I've interviewed a couple other contractors that went to like Blackwater, and I was kind of surprised by how lax the application process and like training before deploying was for them. I thought it'd be way more in depth,
So and I'm probably mispronouncing this, just I haven't thought about it in a while, but the Nasir Square shooting incident in Baghdad, right? Okay. So I got hired after that by Blackwater. I did my contract with SOC. I signed up on a 6-month contract. I ended up staying for 7.5 months in Iraq. I'll talk about that in a minute. But of course, I initially put in for a gig with Triple Canopy and got hired as a DDM, a designated defensive marksman. But then Blackwater also accepted me. So I was like, just for pure namesake and exploratory reasons, I took the Blackwater application and said, I'll take that. And that was a State Department gig, WIPS, the Worldwide Personnel Protective Service. So I showed up to Moyoc. Now that was an intensive screening process. So by the time I applied to Blackwater, maybe it was lax at first. SOC was a little bit more laxed, but it was a DoD contract, and we were alone and unafraid, man. We had no comms, nothing. I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. But when I went to B-dubs, that was, hey man, we're now you have to have a DOS security clearance, right? At least a secret level clearance. And the background check on that resembled the TS clearance on the DoD side of the house. It was pretty in depth. So yeah, I showed up to Moyoc. I went through the screening process, and about 4 weeks into the Personnel Security Specialist course, or the PSS course, I noticed that, back then I had this one-track mind of I served in all male units, and I saw, the females that were hired, and they were failing the machine gun quals because they couldn't put the 50 cal into full load, right? So it was 50 cals, 240s. They're struggling with the 240, but that's okay, I guess, but not really. You're passing them, but they're hard failing. So I made the mistake of bringing that up to one of the instructors because I didn't dig that. And I'm like, hey, look, if I go into a shoot house and I shoot a no-shoot target, I can be terminated and sent home right now. It's like I'm watching them fail the heavy weapons qualifications and the medium machine guns. And I don't understand why you're getting passed.
Yeah.
So they sent me a plane ticket and said, well, you don't like it? Go home, pal. And they fired my ass. So I went back to the Marine Corps. But the point that you're trying to make, which is also funny, I think it's hilarious now. But back then I was kind of pissed off. Me and a recon sniper, Grant Therian, he was awesome. We both got shit canned at the same time. But whatever, man. It turned out for the better. The point, though, is my understanding is that the State Department came down on Blackwater. They said they kicked them out of Iraq. They never left. So the man camp in Baghdad, Camp Victory, they called it the man camp, right? So, I mean, their shit was in Connex boxes, kind of staged, ready to rock, and they may have had a reduced footprint, but of course, like they were working on, getting another piece of the State Department pie.
Yeah.
So, and they did. They got reapproved to continue on with DOS contracts. So that's when I got brought on. And the way it was explained to me was like they had a lot of pipe hitting dudes, right? A lot of former SOF operators, a lot of former Ranger bat guys, a lot of former Marines of higher caliber. And these dudes were just straight up, I already said it, pipe hitters, right?
Yeah.
Now they wanted to kind of tone it down. So in my class, I kind of had I had a Florida Highway Patrol guy. I don't know. We had some tankers, like guys that run tanks. We had some support personnel, some logistics personnel. So I think that, maybe 75% of that Blackwater-esque personality was still kind of there, but now they're injecting about a quarter, a 25% dose of more tame individuals, if you will. And the purpose of that was to make the DOS happy, Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but I mean, so early on, I've had a few guys that I interviewed that were Blackwater, and they were all really early on. Like I think some of them were like in the first class, and they made it sound like it was more like you were already kind of pre-screened by the military. You already got all these other qualifications, so we're just going to come in, bring you in here, and kind of make sure everything's good to go. So I think what you're like you said, there's that incident occurred, and they had to like tighten it up farther on. I'm not necessarily against like bringing in people from other fields because I see it as almost like guys that are trying out for special operations. Just because you're a mechanic doesn't mean you can't do this job. Maybe you just didn't get the opportunity to, go into whatever beforehand to, set you up like special, recon or something before you go contracting. So
Sure.
I think if you can come into it and you, again, meet the standards, which you said you had people that weren't meeting the standards, but if you could come in and meet the standards, then I don't know, what the issue would be. But I also understand the mentality. The attitudes are different. The thinking is different from someone that's been a career special operations person moving into that and someone that's been more on a support side moving into that,
And again, we're back to maturity, right? So I would have fired me. Absolutely. They had every right to, and they made the right call. Your point though is now I do see, so back then it was, if you're not X, Y, and Z, then what are you even doing here? You're not trained for this. But
we're bringing in all these leaf eaters. What the hell?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, go sip some wine and hug that tree, pal. But the the reality of it is, they did train you to walk the box, man. They did train you to provide close protection. This was a legitimate school. Counterterrorism driving was a huge part of it. They had some pretty good trauma and first aid courses. But yeah, defensive tactic. I mean, everything was a part of it. And if you didn't meet the standard, minus the machine gun folks, then you didn't meet the standard. And it was not more than 10 seconds. The second that happened, they would rip you out of the room and they would get you a plane ticket and you pack your stuff and you are out. So it was, yeah, it was tight. They ran a tight ship there and I was very impressed by it. That facility was world class, super cool.
I think they have one out here. I think there's one here by the border. I think there's an old, I don't know if it's still owned by Blackwater, but I think it was originally built by Blackwater. It's down by the prison and down by the border here in San Diego. It's or by one of the contract. I'm pretty sure it's Blackwater, but I could be wrong about that. So you left that, decided to come back home to the Marine Corps, call Chesty up.
I was sad but stoked. Like 6 or 7 of my friends from SOC, we've already spent time in. We all got hired together, and that was really neat, right? So Gloria Scheidl's hired. She was a sweetheart, and she was at the, she was HR there. But yeah, she was part of the Blackwater family for sure, and a bunch of my other buddies. I don't want to go down the name list, but one of my better friends, Mark Thies, he ended up, and Danny Costello. It just is that these guys were just solid, man. Garrett Schwindel, another good friend of mine, he was a Ranger bat guy. They moved forward. They didn't get axed like I did, and they had a blast, and they had a hell of a career on the PMC side of the house. But going back to the Marine Corps, it pulled at my heartstrings too, because you're back in the gun club,
Mm-hmm. Is Danny Costello? I'm trying to look him up. Is he the guy that's in that famous Blackwater video where he's sitting there sniping from that rooftop? It's just like taking shot after shot.
That's Travis Haley.
Travis Haley. Okay.
Yeah, Travis Haley.
Danny Costello. That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, Danny Costello. Yeah, he's out there, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Danny.
What a gig, man. I mean, I think contracting would have been cool. I think that would have been a cool gig. But I see the plus and minuses of both, right? Of being like a contractor, obviously the money. You're making a shit ton of money if you're doing that. Minuses are you don't really have the support structure you have with the military, and you could get axed at any time, but you could also quit at any time.
Yep, and I'll tell you, this is interesting for folks to know. This is a huge part of the war that not a lot of people are either read in on or educated on. The contract that I got hired by SOC was it was under the Army Corps of Engineers. It was called the Coalition Munitions Clearance Project, or the CMC project. So basically during shock and awe, of course, we bombed all of Saddam's C2 nodes, all of his command and control nodes. We took out his infrastructure. We bombed the Iraqi army barracks. We tried to, but ASPs, ammunition supply points, what are they filled with? Aircraft munitions, artillery munitions, mortar munitions, recoilless rifle rounds. I mean, there's some heavy munitions in these ASPs. So if you send a couple JDAMs through the roof or some penetrating bunker buster bombs, keeping things, not going through, GBU or, I'm not going to go through the crazy nomenclature for our audience, but you get the gist. Once you bomb these things, all it did was it mushroom clouded and it spread that unexploded ordnance through the desert. So now you have, let's call it a 4-click perimeter, a circular, 4 kilometers, and there's UXO all over the place. So once we transitioned from, to more of an IED fight, all the Mujahideen or AQI had to do was go drive to these old ASPs and pick up whatever the hell they wanted, throw it in the trunk of their car and drive off, and they could build as many IEDs as they wanted to build. Mm-hmm. So our job was this. We partnered with Tetra Tech and EOD Technologies, EODT. Those were the EOD techs that were retired, that were contracted. Now, while they're digging bombs out of the dirt, and every day we're doing a BIP, we're blowing in place, a half a ton shot, a 1 ton shot, however many munitions we can dig out, they're putting C4 on it and bipping it. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody has to provide security, because now we're pissing off the bad guys by denying them access to UXO. So I think, we were on that contract, we were truly alone and unafraid. There was maybe 30 of us, maybe. We had up armored F-350s with, and we would build, fighting tubs out of the rear. We had to weld that stuff ourselves. All we had was saws, M4s, and 9mm pistols. And we had nothing but Motorola radios, and all they could do is talk to each other. But we had another company called the IEPC, which is the Iraqi something protection company. They basically hired a bunch of former Iraqi soldiers as contractors, and we hired like 500 of them. And by we, I mean SOC, right? So they were the outer perimeter, outer cordon, and they had, PKMs and PKM machine guns and like sentry posts set up. While in the inner workings of our circle, we were providing close protection for the EOD techs while they dug out the unexploded ordnance. Now, these were called remote sites. So ASP-15 Bravo, for example, was just over by Tikrit, Saddam's hometown. Cop Spiker, I think. Anyway, I might have got that wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's right. Gist is, man, we would spend 2 to 3 months at an ASP before it was cleaned up. And then we'd go to a new one. And when we went to the next one, the EOD tech dudes would take these specialized metal detectors called Schonstats, and they would basically figure out and map the perimeter of where all this UXO, like how wide do we need to set up security is the gist. What's our working area going to be defined as? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're almost like plotting out a minefield,
Yeah, and then, dude, honestly, rinse and repeat. So dig up as much UXO as you can, bip it, make sure it's clean enough-ish, and then let's rock and roll over to the next site. So that brought me from up into Crit, all the way down to Baghdad, all the way west through Nasr wa Salam to West Ramadi. And, yeah, man, it was a
just
lot
seeing
of
the Iraqi
convoying.
countryside.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. When you got done with the contracting, is that when you moved over to Anglico?
Yeah, so that's funny, man. So I got done with the contract. I got shit canned by Blackwater, and but like I've got money. So I'm on this like whatever, dude. I'm in Florida. I've got a ton of cash in the bank. I got a 2-bath condo in Boca Raton, Florida. I mean, just living, man. LIVIN, brother. So yeah, man, it was cool because I'm going down near Palm Beach International Airport one day, and this Belvedere Road, and I see this Navy Marine Corps Support Reserve Center, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Marine Corps. I see these Humvees. I'm like, rappel tower. I'm like, let's go check that out. I still got a military ID. So, yeah, dude, I walk in civilian clothes, kind of got long hair, and I'm walking down the hallway. And the left side of the building as you walk in is the Navy. The right side's all Marines. And this is 4th Anglico, Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company, right? I have no idea what the hell it is. I saw 2nd Anglico while I was at Camp Lejeune, but I didn't know much about it, man.
Nobody does. Nobody knows who Anglico is, even the Marines.
Yeah, even half the guys in Anglico don't truly understand what Anglico is or what it's capable of, right? So, but dude, imagine this, man. Here's this dude, me, right? Kind of weird, as you can tell. Everybody listening knows this guy's pretty weird. But I'm walking down the hallway, and this gunny pops his head out, and he's like super friendly. His name is Reed Hollander. He goes, "Hey, Marine," and I purposely just kept walking. I'm like, he's not talking to me. Can't be. I'm a civilian, but I'm the only dude in the hallway. So he goes, "Marine, hey, Marine," and I'm like, he's got me pegged. So I turn around. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "Hey, I'm Gunnery Sergeant Hollander. Who are you?" I was like, "I'm George. What's up, man?" He's like, "Are you a Marine?" I'm like, "Yeah, So he's like, what'd you do in the Marine Corps? So I basically told him everything I told you in short order. And he's like, "Hey, do me a favor. Come into my office, bro. Let's have a chat." So he sits me down and he explains to me the core mission of Anglico and kind of what they do. And I'm like, wait a minute. So although I'm a reservist, I can pump out and you'll join me to your unit as an 0311. He goes, "Yeah, you'll be an MOS mismatch, but we don't really care. Your experience is needed here." I'm like, "All right, man, let's do it. I'm in." So basically I call the prior service recruiter and I get a contract and I rock out at 4th Anglico, and I just loved it.
Were they going to
freaking
make
loved it.
you since you were going there with the wrong MOS? At some point, were you going to have to go back through an MOS school?
Yeah, so I fought it. I fought it tooth and nail. I wanted to remain 03 something, just because that's how you're brought up. And again, you're talking about young George.
Pogue.
Exactly, dude. And I didn't want. Hey, you said it, not me, brother. But I had no appreciation for enablers or support personnel. Like I didn't get it. So finally, I do a deployment as an 0311. No, actually, check that. I did retrain, but there was no plan, right? So the way this worked out is, I get put on orders to basically be active duty at this joint, right? So I'm helping out. I'm in the shop every day now. I'm showing up at 08. I'm out of there by 1600. So I'm one of the guys, making friends. Everyone's super cool. Anglo bros, right? Everybody's Brody. And these dudes are hyper intelligent. And one of the things I appreciated about the reserves right off the rip was, this is not your average Marine unit. Everyone here is from South Florida. Everybody's a DEA agent, or everybody's, like some kind of high-end law enforcement dude. You got a lot of firemen, which is what I am now. And, again, there was another guy who was an attorney in there. There was just various jobs. A lot of guys were working, they were contractors. So you had some talent. Like, there was a talent pool here. And people knock on reservists, but, man, these dudes were smart. So you always want to be the dumbest guy in the room. So I dug it. Like, where do I sign? I meet this fighter pilot, Sam Griffith. He's a forward air controller. And now I start learning that our pilots get ripped out of the cockpit for a 3-year FAC tour for a forward air controller. So I meet Sam Griffith, and anyway, he's like, "Hey, George, I'll make you a deal." I'm like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "If you teach me the grunt stuff, the tactics, the shooting stuff, I'll start training you up, and we'll look at becoming a JTAC. How's that sound?" I'm like, "All right, sounds pretty cool, So, I go to 0861 school, which I hated. And back then it was, but I loved the last part of it in Coronado. Oh, that was so cool. But I go to 4 weeks in Fort Sill. I go to 4 weeks in Coronado, California for the Naval Gunfire Spotters course. And in that moment, I fell in love with being an 0861.
In Coronado?
Oh yeah, man! And when we went out to San Clemente and we did the naval gunfire exercise,
they don't even do that anymore.
I know, it's a bummer.
I heard that they moved it from Coronado, and I think it's like a digital course now, just at the end of Fort Sill. I was like, oh,
yeah. That you really can't. You need to see. To appreciate your MOS, you need to see the power of even 5-inch guns. You need to see the power of naval gunfire.
I'm with you. I think that's the biggest thing.
It thrashes the earth.
I mean, any weapon system that you're being expected to employ, if you've never seen it drop live, that's ridiculous. And I'll say this, I say that as a guy that went to TACP school. And then when I went to go do my deployment, so when you go through TCP school on the East Coast, you're using almost all dumb training ordnance. You're not using any live bombs, because none of the ranges on the East Coast, not many ranges will drop live ordnance on. So I did my schoolhouse, went through TCP school, became a JTAC, then got immediately attached to an advisor team. And because my advisor team workup was not a traditional workup, there was no JTAC training. So I never got to see a live bomb until I got to Afghanistan. I was like, this is kind of fucked up that I was complaining about it the whole time, but, to your point, that's crazy.
Wow, man. But, what I think is cool, though, is, you still found a way to fall in love with the MOS, because now the way I started looking at it was this. I'm like, all right, man, George, quit your bitching. Like, I do that a lot now. I'm really very introspective kind of guy. So whenever I catch myself, with a poor thinking pattern, I snag it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, dude, get over yourself, humble up. This is rad. You're learning new material. You're exposing yourself to new things. And this is really healthy and good for you, man. And if you embrace this, there's some folks here at 4th Anglico that are really going to take good care of you, man. And you found yourself a good group of guys. You found a good team. And I really did. I consider that to be my home unit. So, yeah, man, I once I got my 0861 MOS, I immediately went to JFO, Joint Fires Observer. Dude, I was the third class like ever.
Oh, really? You know? Yeah, it's a newer program.
Yeah, so I was the third class ever. And I think at this time we're talking again 08 time frame. Yeah, I became a JFO. So then I deployed to Iraq. This will be my third trip to Iraq with 4th Anglico. But we detached from 4th Anglico and attached to 2nd Anglico. So did it out of Lejeune.
Yeah, that happens a lot with the reserve units. They'll send out either maybe just a firepower control team or maybe sometimes an entire SALT, and they attach to the active duty unit's mission. You said, I remember, I know the name, I know Major Griffith's story because I think I got to Afghanistan right after he got killed, or maybe I was getting ready to leave Afghanistan when he got killed. It was one or the other. Yeah. And then I also know Jason Hartzell. You know Jason? Yeah.
Jason's one of my best friends in the world.
Yeah.
And Major Griffith is also Sam Griffith.
Yeah.
He was my absolute friend. He was my FIC team leader when I went to Iraq with him. We spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, I've only heard good things about him, especially from Jason, who I went to Chiefs course with him. He and I were... Yeah, I've tried to get Jason to come on. If you're watching this, I'm trying to get him to
give me a
on.
call, brother. Yeah,
hit him up.
He's a super stud, man. Sam Griffith's gig. So his call sign was SWAC, Slewable Wide Acquisition Radar. So if you can see my face, I'm going to do it right. So say there's a dude over here, and he tells a funny joke. Sam would go. So he would slew his eyes to the left, but his head would stay to the front, and he would just kind of scan the room by moving his eyes around. His head would be stationary. So they gave him the call sign SWAC for Slewable Wide Ac.
That's funny.
And but he was a dork in all the right ways. That guy had a 20-pound brain, and he was an expert in becoming an expert. So that made my job difficult when it came to teaching tactics and weapons manipulation and stuff like that, because he was asking me such in-depth questions that I really had to dig to satisfy it, and answer him correctly. And he his exacting standards were the same out of me, right? Like when it came time to train me with air delivered fires. So,
yeah, it has to be. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that he was actually killed on a patrol that he wasn't supposed to be on, but he volunteered to take it so one of his guys could have a day off. Or
it was
Hartzell.
Like yeah, I believe it was Hartzell. Yeah, Hartzell he needed it. Hartzell was getting it every day. Every day, and the survivor's guilt thing is something we all struggle with. But it's kind of, it's, hey man, the reality of it is the way that we can honor Sam is, and folks like him, all of our brethren that we've lost, right? Quite a few at this point. And it's just live a rock star life, man. So, the guys, to my advice to everybody on this show who's listening, if you're the type of dude who, there's nothing wrong with wearing a black bracelet. This is a whoop, by the way. But if you have a black bracelet with a name engraved on it, it's a nice token of memorabilia. Of course it is. But if you're hanging it on the glass, a whiskey glass, and on the day of that person's death, if you're pouring a whiskey shot in that glass and you're looking at it and you're drinking your whiskey, and this happens annually every year, and you cried out, like, that's probably not healthy. And I know that Sam he wouldn't want that. He wouldn't want you mourning him for an extended period of time. He would be like, dude, get up off your ass and go do something with your life that is going to better the society or the folks around you. So crying yourself to the bottom of the bottle is really not the answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's
a tough
that's
one,
not the answer for a lot of people's problems that they go to it for. What I'm saying? Like any kind of thing, you got to be positive. It's tough, and I get it. Where people it's obviously extremely hard and extremely upsetting. But I'm with you, man. You have to go out and really make it worth it. Really go enjoy yourself. Really, like you said, would they want you sitting there crying by yourself at home, drinking by yourself, or even at a bar by yourself? Maybe if you're going to go drink and celebrate it, then grab some people and make it like a thing. Make it like a little get-together or party or something, not some somber event. You know what I'm saying? Like a celebration.
Keep it positive,
positive mindset. You know, when you start going down that, especially when you're drinking, man, when you start thinking negative stuff, and you know, some guys, it's too much for them. You gotta stay positive. It's very easy to delve into the negative thoughts and negative mindset, and this sucks, and it shouldn't have been this way. And you know what, man? Especially when we're talking about combat stuff, the enemy had a say. You know, it's not always something that we did wrong. The enemy had a say in this too. You know.
Yeah, the enemy always gets a vote, but you know, man, it's it's tough, but it's truly possible to move through post-traumatic stress. You know, the post-traumatic growth side of the house is truly obtainable. You know, it's just, there's a book out there. It's called Resilience, Hard-Won Wisdom for Living a Better Life. All right, if you want to check it out, is my buddy and I, Lee Bronco. He's another 4th ANGLICO JTAC, good guy. So we buy this book, and we're kind of book clubbing now, right? But what this did, it's like Meditations of, you know, Marcus Aurelius. It's got Aristotle, some Plato in there. A lot of ancient Greek. The Greeks were smarter than us. You know, they had a term called eudaimonia, which is basically living a flourishing life. And you know, we were really examining what that looks like, and we realized we weren't doing it. So it's like, all right, man, I got to get my thinkiology in check. I have to write my thoughts and order my thinking. And then once I do that, now I have a framework with which I can start to process information. So now I can process, you know, the things that I need to move through. And I think people get hung up in one spot, and I'm going to shut up after this. Newtonian physics, right? So like, we're not racquetballs, dude. So if I take a racquetball, I throw it against the wall, and it returns to its original size and shape. That's not what a human is, man. So you hit a wall, you hit something hard, and I still have racquetball. Okay, looks the same. Well, that's not us, man. The obstacle is the way, and when you move through something, you come out the other side with the right lens, with the right perspective. You can be thankful for even the most negative of experiences, because you know there's always opportunity to grow and to learn and to to reshape your thinking about how you perceive stuff. So these guys who sacrificed their lives for us, it took me a little while to figure this out, but the one way that we can honor them is to remember them, continue mission, and pick something in life that's honorable, worthy of your time, worth doing, and rock it. You know.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I'm 100% with you, man. Do something with it, you know, like on Saving Private Ryan, where he's like, earn this, you know, get out there and fucking do something. It doesn't, you know, I would much rather hear somebody say that they're like going and volunteering at like a veteran cemetery or something like that to honor somebody, you know, to clean it up, or they're at a VFW, they're helping out something, you know, it's something, you know, like it doesn't have to all be getting hammered and being sad. No. I'm with you there. I want to talk a little bit more about ANGLICO. I don't think we're going to have enough. We might get into some of your time at MARSOC and stuff, but I'd like to talk about, you know, a lot of people don't know. I guess more of my audience knows who ANGLICO is, obviously, because I've talked about them more on here. But a lot of people don't really understand them. Can you give us like your perception when you first got there of what they did, and then how that maybe have shaped, or maybe some cool training, like what did you think about it, and what advice would you give somebody that's maybe active duty now and they're thinking about going to like an ANGLICO reserve unit?
Okay. So the reserve units, it's just static line, but you have the advantage of going to jump school, right? But ANGLICO, to me, it makes more sense if you say it backwards. So Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company. All right, cool. What does all that mean? Well, it's a company-sized element of Marines, so it's approximately 200 to 250 dudes, right, that are liaisons, right, to other units, the customer. We export a capability, and there's a little bit of salesmanship there in being a liaison, putting the L in ANGLICO, right, not loser, in air and naval gunfire. And with that, obviously, comes communications, because you can't coordinate naval gunfire, artillery, mortars, or air without good comms. So the gist is company-sized element of dudes, you're a liaison, so you're going to be working with the ground combat element guys and the air combat element guys. So let's put this in Army terms so we make it really simple for everybody who's listening. When the Army needs fixed wing support, they're going to have to go to the Air Force. So now you have two agencies butting heads, maybe, but the coordination piece is definitely it's cross agency coordination, right? what's beautiful about the Marine Corps way of war, the way the Marine Corps fights is we bring the total picture to the fight. And that's ingrained in us, in our hearts, from the word go. And what I mean by that is the three-dimensional battlefield, because we have the Marine air, ground task force. So it's a single cohesive task force where you have the air combat element, it's all your air dudes, and we have aircraft. Your ground combat element is the maneuver force, and everything is based off of the ground combat element. Everything else exists to support them. So, and then you have logistics element, right? Justin?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. So what that means is, in our very DNA as Marines, what we do well is we integrate fires. So everything in our mission planning from the word go is we're incorporating artillery, we're incorporating mortars, we're incorporating air support, and that blend, that 360-degree battlefield, three-dimensional battlefield blend is in our very DNA. So when you have a customer, so now back to ANGLICO. ANGLICO specializes in that, and then they dial down on it, really drill down and teach you the nitty-gritty of how that looks. So what you get to do is you get to go to a customer like 75th Ranger Regiment. You get to go to a customer like 82nd Airborne, 101st, Navy SEAL teams, Army Special Forces, and you show up as a single cohesive unit, a firepower control team. So you have a JTAC or a FAC, a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, or a Forward Air Controller. The FAC is a winged aviator. The JTAC is not. The capability is the same, right? So you have a JTAC or a FAC. You have two fire specialists, and their only job on Earth is to coordinate fires and help the JTAC out. And you have two communication specialists who are also cross-trained, and we're cross-trained in comms. The whole thing is awesome. But we're bringing the assets from the Marine Corps, from the Marine Air Ground Task Force, to aid in whatever mission that they want to do. So there's a lot of wiggle room with this. So, hey, customer, whatever the hell you need, tell us what you need. We'll set it up for you. We'll bring all the secret sauce. We'll do all the behind the scenes stuff, set up your comm networks, but we'll bring the fires, whatever that looks like. So what you're doing is you're sitting there with the ground commander, you're sitting there with the squadron commanders, and you're the liaison between the two, and you make the solution fit. So ANGLICO is a solutions-based unit, and it's the only unit in the Marine Corps that doesn't work with Marines.
Yeah.
Is that a good?
That's what I think. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people fail to understand is they don't generally support Marines. When I was in Marja in 2011 with 3-6, we actually had a firepower control team that would rotate between our company positions to assist. But that was the only time I've ever seen ANGLICO work with Marines. Generally, they're exactly like what you said. They're the liaison element. We bring all this Marine Air Ground Task Force, fire support elements, and all that stuff that other people could utilize, but they don't have the capability to do that. So ANGLICO comes in with the communications and fire support experts to allow the Army, the French Foreign Legion, Royal Marines, like whoever you're working with, to also
148 Commandos.
It's such 148 battery. Those guys used to come out to Pendleton twice a year, I think. The Japanese would come out, good times.
And ANGLICO's scalability, so, to the point, like, it's not just the 4 or 5 man FIC team, right? It's, I'm not even going to get into salts right now, but the gist is that, I'll give you an example. I had a buddy, Martin Castillo. He was a single man detachment, and he worked with the Australian Special Boat Service, SBS.
Yeah.
That was it. The opportunities are endless. The way that the package can be tailored is basically to any size and scope. A single company of ANGLICO Marines that's a big capability. But
a single company is designed to support an Army division.
A division element, correct.
Yep.
And that's a lot of coordination for an entire division of ground maneuver forces. So, but the cool part about ANGLICO for me was you get to shed that Marine Corps identity a little bit, but not entirely. You're still a professional. You're still a United States Marine, right? But, if you show up and you're a blockhead, and nobody likes you, and you talk like a weirdo, and you hoorah, right.
Yeah, the motard.
Like, yeah, dude. If you're belt fed and like absolutely retarded, nobody wants to talk to you. So you gotta be. There's some finesse, and you have to kind of adopt the culture of the unit you're supporting.
I don't think I ever did a running cadence while I was at Anglico.
No, I hated that. No.
I'm not even sure while I was there if we ever did a company run, but I literally showed up to Anglico on a Friday and then checked out on Monday and checked in to the MU to start my workup with my Anglico. My Anglico team had already checked into the MU the week prior before me PCSing. So I showed up and was like, welcome to Anglico. You're on deployment. Head over there. So I didn't really get to do some of the other stuff that everybody else had to do. But, man, it is a good time. I love Anglico. The reserve Anglicos are, they're great. They used to come out to both San Clemente Island when I was there, and then also on the East Coast up to Lejeune and stuff like that. And I've worked with both 3rd and 4th Anglico guys. I've actually worked with some 6th Anglico guys, but I'm not sure if I worked with them while they were at 6th Anglico. It might have been before they were with 6th Anglico, but because that's the newer one, Such a great time.
My commanding or my fires, basically on the MARSOC fire side of the house. My CO at the time was Major Zyla. Lieutenant Colonel Zyla, I think, was the first CO of 6th Anglico when it stood up.
Man, that name sounds so familiar. Zyla?
Yeah.
That name.
Zyla.
It's funny because we're in this small community, right? Anglico, fire support community, in the Marine Corps in general. So it's like some of these names you're throwing out there, I'm like, wait, I think I know that name. It's such it is quite possible to know them. But when you're talking about MARSOC fires, we can get into this for a little bit. Sure. I mean, I guess before we get into that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about for Anglico, any of your deployments or anything?
No, not really. It was the other part of Anglico that people don't realize is it's not just dropping bombs. That's not it. You're there to provide solutions. I'm not going to get into the electronic warfare side of the house or, the ability to, work with signals intelligence, human source intelligence to start layering that to develop pictures and developing strike packages. There's a lot of things that you can do as a JTAC or a FAC. You give your ground commanders, you're giving them options.
Yeah, for sure.
So. You're helping to shape the battlefield in a specific, particular way. So it's not just like, let's just go put warheads on everybody's forehead type of thing. That's great. Love doing it, right? Yeah. But no, there's a lot more.
I've heard that the Anglico kind of mission and capabilities has been kind of shifting the last 8 years or so as different capabilities become available and different technologies become available, and stuff like that. So I've heard that the mission that I remember when I was there is kind of still there, but that's not necessarily the focus as much anymore. So I'm interested to hear from people when all that stuff becomes available to the public. But
yeah, man.
So how'd you move from there to MARSOC then? Let's talk about that.
Oh, I got out again. So I did a deployment to Iraq.
Again. I'm out.
I know. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm going back to college. So I did the same thing. Went back to Florida Atlantic University. I moved in with my buddy from Anglico. So we were both sergeants at the time. But again, another condo in Boca, just kind of chilling. And there's this party lake. It's kind of cool. We had a buddy with a nice boat. So after my 4th deployment, I just got back from Afghanistan. I did a pump with Echo 2-1 where I became the company JTAC for them. Anyway, point is now I got 3 tours to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and I come home. I'm done, brother. I'm out. That's the way I'm thinking. So now I'm in the inactive ready reserves or the IRR. What that is you are a civilian, but you're still on the books in case, right? That's the best way I can describe it to civilian listeners. So here I am on the books in case, right? But no, I'm on a boat and I'm in Lake Boca and I'm having some drinks with my buddies and I am getting a suntan and I'm enjoying life, man. And my phone rings. So I pick up the phone and it's my buddy Brody Ziegler. And he calls me up and, he's like, hey, George. He's like, what's going on, man? He goes, what are you doing? So I told him everything I just told you. He's like, are you fat? I'm like, no, I'm not fat. Like why? He's like, good. And he's like, how'd you like to come up to MARSOC? We need combat experience JTACs. We're digging, and it's a kind of a by name thing. Like we know dudes, and your background is unique. You've got the grunt side of the house. You kind of did some other stuff, but you're also a combat experience JTAC, and we'd love to have you come on up and give this a shot. I'm like, I'm mind blown. I don't know what to think, right? So he's like, well, we'll send you by name orders and we'll FedEx that to you. We'll have it to you in 30 days. You'll have to withdraw from all your classes at FAU. You'll have to pack your shit and put it in a pod and, hop in your Vic and make movement up to Camp Lejeune, and we'll see you at Stone Bay, dude. And that was it. So,
and these are active. Are you still a reservist being activated for this, or are you going on active duty?
So it was my understanding that I was the first reserve, dude, to be plucked, to come to work for MARSOC as a JTAC. Now, subsequent friends of mine, in very short order, were doing the same thing. But MARSOC, as an active duty unit, they don't really know how to write orders. So this was basically PCS orders. I forgot the actual name of them, but they were active duty orders that I got. Now, when you activate a reservist, orders are supposed to be written in a particular way, for a period of service up to 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. But there was no expiration date on this. But the whole point of me to come here was to go through to redo SEER school, which sucked, but it was fine. I actually went to another cool SEER course. It was pretty fun. Then to do MARSOC Fires, which I did at Top Gun at Naval Fighter Weapons School in Fallon, right, with actual Top Gun students. That was pretty neat. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of my culminating event. And then and then Special Operations Training Course, or STC. And by they, I mean the powers that be at MARSOC headquarters. They take a look at your reserve qualification summary, your RQS. It's basically your reserve resume.
Yeah.
And they look at all the schools and all the training that you've attended. And I already met the requirements for STC. So it's STC, SEER, and MARSOC Fires. Those three schools award you the MOS of 8071 SOX B, or Special Operations Capability Specialist Bravo, Firepower Control. So that's where you are now, hominis dominus. You are a MARSOC JTAC. So,
you had Rhino sign off on you, right? And that he was
yeah, what a stud,
legend.
That's a story in itself.
He's ANGLICO legend and MARSOC legend.
Yeah, man, yeah, he's a good dude, man. He's a good dude.
I've heard. I never got an evaluation from him, but I've always heard that he does not fuck around on the evaluations.
No, and he hates A-10 pilots.
I mean, don't we all? We love A-10s, but sometimes as a MARSOC, as Marine JTACs, it's kind of frustrating to work with A-10 sometimes. Yeah. And also the fratricide, he has a really great fratricide class. This may be even before you probably didn't receive. I don't know if you received this or not. If this is before you get in there when the MARSOC JTAC called in the A-10 on themselves.
Yeah.
Did you get that course with him, or had that happened yet?
No, that MARSOC JTAC was one of my better friends. He took me under his wing. We're talking about old Ryan.
He's been on the show.
He's a wonderful man. I don't have enough positive things to say about him, but when I showed up there, he was the first guy that I met. And you want to talk about a humble, kind, but seriously lethal and effective dude. He took me under his wing, started really getting me dialed and showing me the ropes, and he helped quite a bit. The other thing is he helped reactivate my TS-SCI, and then I got a couple read-ins, and that was neat. So he was a huge advocate for me when I first got there.
When you got there and you're stepping into this MARSOC, so for anyone that thinks that your kind of path there sounds kind of weird, we have to remember that this was early on. And early on, not only were they looking for operators, which is why they pulled all the recon guys, but they needed fire support guys that could go in and be JTACs and do fire support planning and that kind of stuff, and they needed people with experience. So it wasn't uncommon for someone to get by name requested. You didn't necessarily have to go try out because, again, like we mentioned earlier, the fire support community already is small. It's the Marine Corps is small, the fire support community is extremely small, and then the JTAC community is even smaller. If I don't know you, I for sure know somebody that knows you, and I can reach out to someone and be like, "Is this dude legit or not?" You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So for those that may think that your path there is kind of strange, that's why.
Yeah, there was a need, and but I mean, you still get screened. I mean, you still have to go through a screening process.
Yeah.
But,
and Rhino is he's not
gonna
let you go out unless you could do it.
You took the words out of my mouth, pal.
He's a legend,
Yeah,
man. He's still a legend. I still get. I did like after he passed away. I did. They asked me to do a T-shirt for him. A T-shirt. Some of the guys had.
Oh man, I wanted one of those. They're super rad.
Yeah, but I did. I'll send you. Hold on. Okay, we'll talk about it after. But yeah, that's great though, man. That you made it over there. What was like, you coming in off the reserves as an enabler. As an enabler, you're already coming in as like an outsider to a team.
Sure.
But now you're coming
tough.
in from the reserves, and they know that. What was the vibe when you first showed up? Was like, oh, this fucking guy, here we go. Or were you pretty welcomed?
A little bit of both, right? So, I didn't advertise the fact that I just got pulled out of the reserves, number one. Number two, I was like anywhere you go where you're new, as much as you're being assessed, I try to assess back, right?
For sure.
You don't just because you're a dude and just because you're blessed off, and I mean you lay down with dogs, you're going to get fleas. So you kind of got to be choosy about who you align yourself with. But everybody was pretty professional. I mean there was no it was a bit of a new world, but I'll tell you what, man. I got lucky and I got chopped off to Cali. Somewhere in between there, we did a bunch of workups. Went to Raven MRX, Raven mission readiness exercise and stuff. But here I am. I'm on a team, and so back then it was 1st MSOT, now it's 1st Marine Raider Battalion, Charlie Company, Team 3. The gist is, yeah, sorry about that. So
no, I thought it was my phone. I was like, what the heck?
No, yeah, I was looking at it. If you're gonna, at that time, if you were going to be in MARSOC, Cali, Pendleton was the place to be, man. I was stoked to be there. Definitely wanted to be a West Coast guy. Because again, with Sec 2-1, I've already been to Cali a bunch of times. It's kind of my place. So yeah, I check into my team, and this is a really funny story about event 8133. We had a green on blue. I'll get to that in a minute. But Matthew Manukian, Ryan Jeske, Sky Moat. I'm praying for you, brothers. I'm praying for you. Love you every day. But Ryan Jeske was the team chief, right? So Ryan Jeske was in Generation Kill, my Force Blue, Rudy Reyes, kind of like the old school recon community dudes. He's about as old school as it gets, man. And these dudes were 1st Recon Battalion through 1st Force, and this was a tight knit team, and all these dudes have been together for a very long time, and they've deployed together. So if you're going to try to crack your way into a team overnight, that's not going to happen with the guys that I was with. So I remember I'm going to make fun of myself. So I show up to interview, and it's just a welcoming on-board interview, but it's like, hey, you're going to be the primary JTAC for this team. Like, what skills do you bring to the table? And I'm like, let me think about this. Well, hey, Gunny, I did this unique training. He's like, hey, do me a favor. Shut the fuck up. He goes, nobody gives a shit about your military stuff, dude. He goes, take a look around. Everyone does military stuff, brother. He goes, what I'm asking is, you came from the reserves, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure did, Gunny. He's like, well, are you like an ASE certified mechanic or something? And I'm like, no. He goes, do you know anything about electrical work? And I'm like, no. He goes, can you, fix, do you know anything about HVAC systems or, air conditioners, or like, do you have any skills like automotive repair, or like, what did you do in the civilian world? And I was like, I was a contractor. He goes, oh, great. Another dirty fucking contractor, right? He's like, okay, wait, what man skills do you have? And point blank, this is what he's asking me. And he's not being a dick. I mean, he kind of is, but it's funny, but it's not, And I'm like, I surf.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's making you think about your own self. You're like, damn, what skills do I have?
I was thinking about Keanu Reeves in Point Break, and it's like, I caught my first tube today, sir. So I didn't know what the hell to say, and I now I get what he meant, right?
Yeah.
So so ever since then, man, I do a lot of funny things. I was a pipe fitter apprentice for a little while, and we'll get into that later. But
just trying all these different. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. How it's okay when it's not a bad thing when support people like join special operations, because they're bringing in these extra skills that normally they wouldn't have. And you don't have to train somebody. You're trained. You're the guy. When I first got, this is nothing like that, but when I was a mechanic when I first came in, because I came in open contract. And I lap moved from 3521 to 0861. And when I first got to 10th Marines, we went out on like a field op and our Humvee broke down. And I got underneath it and was like, it's this. This is what's wrong with it real quick. And they're like, oh, shit. And they're like, yeah, oh, yeah, you used to be a mechanic. And I was like, yeah, dude. So, like, I'm here to help, you know, like.
That's so cool.
It's one of those skills, you know, and that's so I totally get what he's, like, getting at. Like, we got it, dude. You can shoot. But can you build a wall when we need to build a fucking camp out in the middle of nowhere?
And that's exactly what he meant.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, those skills are invaluable. They're absolutely invaluable. You know, and he was like, can you speak a language? So anyway, you know, I think when I started to, when we finally deployed, I'll get into that in a minute, but I started to really do my job, you know, when I was able to start tracking significant activities and start putting pinpricks in the, you know, my maps and tracking trends and actually developing the battle space and taking a look at what I got going on. Then I knew what to target with ISR, and I actually started to be able to prosecute some good targets. And they're like, all right, this guy switched the fuck on. But it took a lot, you know, for people to realize that you're competent and capable.
Yeah, I mean, when you're an outsider coming into a team that's been together even for just a little while, been training together, you're the outsider. You got to prove yourself still. They already know within the team who can do what. Now you're an unknown entity, and you have to come in and show that you're an asset. You know, and I think that's why I really enjoyed being a JTAC, and that's why I really enjoyed being on like smaller teams and doing stuff like that, because it's like I always wanted to feel like I was contributing. You know, you never want to be the weak link, and I always like striving to like, you know, I don't know, you have to have that mentality, right? To like go into those kind of jobs and those kind of skills where you're just, you know, because that I don't want to be the weak link mentality, or I don't want to like be whatever. That causes you to train more on your own or learn more on your own. You know, when I got selected to go to the advisor team to deploy to Sangin, this is my first deployment as a JTAC. And I'm not going with an air shop. You know, I'm not going with a battalion where I got an air officer and I got 5 other JTACs and a couple other FACs and stuff that are with me, and we can all lean on each other. It was me. You know, I'm like the only guy. Yep. And I remember one time my corpsman was like, man, you really love your job, huh? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're always reading your pubs. He's like, you're always reading the books. And I was like, dude, because I don't want to fuck up. You know, like when we get there, like there's no more training. This is for real now.
Yeah, you got to stay in the books, man. And there's so much knowledge and it's super perishable stuff if you don't, you know, if you're not an artisan of your craft. You know, I mean, now I'm a paramedic, you know, I really fell in on the live tissue stuff with the pig lab. So that I dug on the SOIDCs, Special Operations Independent Duty Corpsmen. These guys are almost PA level dudes. But yeah, I mean, there's certain people that I met in MARSOC that had skill sets to where now that I'm 42 years old and I'm an adult, I work on my truck. You know, I learned paramedicine. I'm a practitioner of it. You know, I've been doing it for 6.5 years. You know, freaking cave diver. I learned how to build shit. You know, I've got laser levels. I've got T-squares. I was a pipe
You've
fitter
acquired
apprentice
some
for a while.
skills over your time.
Well, I think the gunny had a little bit of a mark on me there, man. So, you know, the way that I can honor him, you know, now that he's passed, is I'm going to go learn the man skills, brother. You know, I know you're not with us anymore, but now you're listening. Hey, gunny. Hey, I became a gunny too, brother. But yo, I love you, man, and your words hit home, and I got me some man skills.
There you go.
And now I'm a fireman.
I think
I can break into shit. Yeah.
I think everyone should strive to be a somewhat of a Renaissance man. If you don't know what that means, look it up. That just means you know a little bit about a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should always strive to learn small, little stuff. You know, there's nothing wrong. I've always said being interested is interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're interested in things, that to me is extremely interesting. I'm glad to see other people that are just interested in everything, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
so I would say, you know, that one of the bigger things I noticed at MARSOC, you know, once I got to this team, is, again, now, you know, what makes MARSOC unique? Everyone's like, well, what, you know, got Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces. It's the enablers, right? So you're going through the same workup. You're supposed to have the same capabilities as, you know, as far as shooting, as far as tactics, but that's ingrained into you through your battalion level training, your company level training, and your team level training. So now you have these dudes that are specialists that are organic to the team. You have 2 JTACs right? You have signals intelligence capability. You have human source intelligence capability, CI human guys, counterintelligence. You have you have EOD techs, right? You have a canine handler. But all of these guys you don't have to go to an outside agency to source these support elements or these enablers to enable your mission. They're organic to the team. And the scalability of MARSOC as well, to be able to work like more, a Ranger battalion all the way down to elements of the team breaking off and doing, ops. That's what makes and there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the essence of what makes MARSOC unique. So I dug on that, but these guys, man, were experts at becoming experts. That's what I really figured out. I mean,
yeah,
they will read, study, self-motivate. And if there's something that they're deficient in, they will educate themselves to the point of becoming an SME in it.
What would you say? I mean, you came from ANGLICO to MARSOC, so what would you say what were the big differences between how fire support is run with an ANGLICO team than when you were with like MARSOC Fires?
Biggest difference right off the rip is I had, I owned a lot. My clearance authority, like AGM 114 Hellfires, mine, just absolutely. Where to, if you're working, if you're a JTAC for ANGLICO and you're working in somebody's battle space, that's something you would have to get prior approval for, or you would have to get approval for when we had prior approval to use all that stuff. That was huge. The other one is you're controlling. I was almost going to go down a nerd route. I was going to talk about the 350 the different publications. Your job as a JTAC in MARSOC is different than an infantry battalion or infantry company. As an infantry company, yes, you're a little bit more offensive postured, let's say, and you are literally shaping the battle space by deleting Taliban from the earth and destroying. Yeah, I mean you're finding bad guys, you're tracking them, and you're killing them, right? Again, it's back to the option side with MARSOC. You're working in conjunction with your signals intelligence CAT. You're working in conjunction. It's all about intelligence-driven operations. So when you start layering that together, there's a lot of options that we have. So we can either choose to continue to track, tag, locate. We can build a targeting package on this dude, and a lot of the times we were schwacking joint priority engagement list or JPEL level targets, which was pretty cool. We had a lot more freedom. And the commanders trusted you a lot more. So, to where it seemed like the kill chain was a little bit shorter in MARSOC, if that makes sense. And by the kill chain, I mean, there's not so many people who have to approve an airstrike before you need to conduct it. We're still operating under the same rules of engagement, but, it's a big thing to be able to own rockets and guns and missiles off of rotary wing.
Yeah, I mean, the ground force commander
at the team level.
The ground force commander has the authority to approve the missions, but when you're talking a ground force commander with an MSOT is way different than a ground force commander with a battalion. The battalion ground force commander is going to be the CO, XO, or OPSO, and standing right behind him is going to be the JAG. And standing right next to him is going to be the JTAC and air officer, and then next to him is the fires chief. And all those people together are going to come up with this whole thing and get it going, whereas you're the guy.
So I'll put it to you another way. The Captain Matthew Manukian, right? He was I worked out with him. He was very kind, very rad, and I gravitated toward him, and I was always picking his brain for him to kind of groom and mentor me. And he was he's a former grunt. Like, he's just as aggressive as the next guy. So if it comes down to you, being Talib, then maybe we'll delete you. Sure, but maybe not. Maybe let's take a look. Maybe let's track you a little bit, see where you go, develop your pattern of life, develop the atmospheric, see how, now you have a selector on you. You have something that sends or receives a signal. Let's track that, give it to the SIGINT dudes, let them develop this thing a little more, and we'll kind of see what the bigger picture looks like before we start, upsetting the herd by dropping 500-pound JDAMs in their backyard, which is still an option. I got to call in 81 airstrikes that deployment, and I was well over I mean, I was keeping tallies, of course I was, but the Taliban comms, they'd always their ICOM chatter. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, they killed 4 of us," and I'd be like, "Ha ha."
And this was up in Puzay, right?
Yeah, this was in Puzay.
Yeah. For those that don't know, that's like north of Sangin, of the like Sangin proper area. Yeah, it's between what is it? But it's north of what do they call that?
So
Alcatraz.
So it's southeast of the Kijaki Dam, right? Which was I saw that fall, by the way, with ISR. The Kijaki Dam fell to the Taliban. It was freaking weird. But yeah, so you got Sangin right there. Then you got Puzay, Village Stability Post Puzay of ESP, and then the Kijaki Dam, but all Helmand River Valley. Just all farmland, no mountains. I mean, just
nice little road trip on 611. There are some hills up there by Puzay, though. I didn't notice those off. It kind of gets a little hilly out there in the distance. Yeah. But man, hey, we're at about 2 hours. I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to have you on again, and I think we can get into more details about some of the deployments. And I have a million questions that I've been like coming up with and not saying because I don't want to cut you off this whole time. So I definitely think we should do another one. I think this so far has been really great, and I really appreciate you coming on. I'd like to give you an opportunity to promote your business if you want, or anything you'd like.
Yeah, sure. So, I just. So Force Blue, right? This is not my business, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to the organization. It's buoyancy, belonging, and betterment, right? So it's special operations veterans that have their scuba bubble or their dive bubble. I do not, but I'm also a technical diver, a cave diver, trimix diver, some stuff like that. The folks in Force Blue brought me in, and what we do is we do ocean conservation missions to help scientific research divers, anything from 3D shipwreck mapping to water acidification testing to core sampling. We work a lot with NOAA. We work a lot with frost science and coral reef restoration projects, right? Because our reefs are dying and our oceans are super important. But the big thing that I do there is, and I really enjoy this, is the Ocean Conservation School. The children of SOF operators whose parents were, their fathers were killed in combat, we get to bring them in and get them scuba certified and put them to work as conservationists, which is kind of cool. As far as now, Force Blue is just a wonderful organization. I highly recommend you guys check it out if you're not familiar with it. Point 2, so moving from dive master to instructor trainer, I'm now a course director for NAUI, the National Association of Underwater Instructors. So Army Special Forces Dive School, NAUI, right? NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory in Houston, Texas, NAUI. So NAUI is all about quality of education, and they allow their instructors the academic freedom to teach their courses in any reasonable manner they see fit. So long as the standards are being met. So we have a lot of latitude because we're actually professional educators as opposed to being a course facilitator. I'll pick on PADI for a minute, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. We call them put another dollar in, or not we, just me. But point is, we don't do quick, cheap, and easy courses, and neither do I. So my business, Dive Logix, LOGIX, scuba training and support down here in South Florida. I'm a NAUI course director. I've been doing this for a long time now. But I've had the real privilege of training under guys that have done this for 35 years plus on how to teach and professionally, make you a diver. Mm-hmm. Dave Oakes, Terrence Teisel. I got a lot of good mentors. So what I do is I take my students and I teach them the physics, the physiology, the decompression theory. I teach them the math, the formulas. I have them do their own calculations. I don't rely on the e-learning, right? We do have classroom. Then we get in the pool, and you ain't getting out of that pool until you're ready for the open ocean. But it's fun. We're edutainers as well. We're not here to, this isn't, not trying to make you a SEAL, brother.
Yeah.
We're just, we're going to go see some cool shit and have a great time doing it. And we have the 3rd largest barrier reef in the world right here off of South Florida, and it's freaking beautiful. So, high-end courses, extremely good, robust education, and people like to do things they're good at. So that's kind of my thing, man. If you want quick, cheap, and easy, go to a dive shop. I'm not your guy. You pay for what you get. And, if you're interested in actually learning how to become a diver and you want to do this for real, now I'm your guy.
Yeah.
So give me a call, because I throw my heart and soul into these courses, because you can really change somebody's life with a little bit of aqua therapy, my guy.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll throw the link to your website in the show description so that people can check it out. And I think, something like that, where that's really, again, it's a life and death kind of thing. Like, wouldn't you want the best kind of instruction? I don't want the wave top, if you will, kind of instruction.
Yeah,
give me the in-depth stuff.
Yeah, we're putting you on a life support system and bringing you to an environment you're not designed to be in. And, I'm going to teach you how to do it right. So,
yeah, man.
I think it's fun. And Justin, you've got an invite, brother. This room I'm in right now, over here, there's a big, nice, California king bed. I got a beautiful home. Why don't you come on down?
Trying to lobby me to come to
underwater.
Florida? I might have to,
Dude.
man. I literally was like, man, this guy just invited me to come dive. I was like, I might do that. That's something I've always wanted to do.
I would love nothing more than to have you over, man. And,
I might have to do that, dude. That sounds
it's
like
kind of rock star. It's rock star level stuff. You'll dig.
Hell yeah, dude.
Right,
I'll check out. So I'll put the link to your website in the show description. Everybody check that out. Make sure to check out my website, jkramergraphics.com. If you're an Anglico guy, check out anglicoshop.com. My Instagram is Former Action News, Former Action Guys, all of those. Check those out. My Former Action News page has been blowing up. I really appreciate the support. It's crazy. I'm getting millions and millions of views every month now, which is absolutely insane, because it started out as like a military meme page, and here we are, where I'm like, I feel like I'm a professional news page, and I got to take it more seriously now. So appreciate the support from everybody. And George, man, it was really great having you on, and I really look forward to talking to you again, man.
Hey, I hope a lot of you guys had some laughs at my expense. Self-deprecating humor, sign of genius, my man.
It's always good.